a warm welcome for Marc Bach, and we'll go get this thing underway.
So we're going to talk about Final Cut, okay? Welcome, guys. Nice to see you here. If you want to reach me or anything, ask me questions or something like that, the best way is Twitter. So you can add me or something. You send me a private message. You publicly. You talk to me. I usually reply if I'm not busy, and I try to keep an open conversation. I'm kind of sarcastic, so sometimes I go like, it looks like I'm pretty serious, but I'm not. Okay. So let's start with this thing. We're going to talk about low-budget movies because it's easy to make a movie when you have a lot of money. Well, not easy, but it's easier when you have money than when you don't have the money. So you have to go through several things that to get that idea into make it a project, that project to make it a reality, right? So the mission is always to stay on budget. How can you do that? Well, we're going to find different ways. You have, obviously, different ways of doing that. And you always have to pick two options out of these three. You can make it cheap, and you can make it fast, but it's not going to be good. These combinations, they're always there. So you have to choose always two. So how can you make it actually trying to keep the three of them, right? You have to make it in a way that you can save money. And time is money. So then you make it all super fast. So every single process of making the movie has to be really fast for you to try to squeeze the maximum quality into it. But at the same time, you have to make that time to be really worth. So let's say it in a different way. You have to improve your workflow constantly. So every time you do something, the next time you have to do it the same way or even better to be able to achieve it in less time, the same quality, right? So that's how we approach this movie that I worked on. It's a low budget movie. We had $1 million movie. Yeah, it was I come from Spain. $1 million movie in Spain is not a low budget movie. It's a movie, okay? So here is considered a low budget movie, and you have to keep things in there. So keeping in mind these numbers are like kind of, average. But a regular movie would spend like between a month, 2 months, or maybe 3 months of production. In this case, we shot the movie in 27 days. It's a horror thriller movie. It has 199 scenes, so that's a lot of things to shoot in 27 days. Then you have the editing, right? Sorry. This is supposed to go... Yes. Okay. Have a... Okay. So in the... Sorry, I'm going to go back here, but... right here. So with the editing, it happened the same thing. Usually a movie like that, with that kind of money, you would be editing between 2 months up to 3 months. We edited the movie in a month and 3 weeks. And then for finishing the same thing, we had only like 3 weeks. We're actually in that process. We're still not done with the movie. So we had 3 weeks to do sound, visual effects, Foley and ADR, and then the mixing and the music. So all that thing happens in 3 weeks. It's happening right now. We're still like halfway of that. And then delivery, you would count like there's like different processes you have to do in delivery. We have to squeeze down that delivery into 2 days. So all these like different exports and all this stuff, submitting to iTunes and all this stuff is going to happen in 2 days maximum. So we squeeze actually the whole process of making the movie, a regular low-budget movie, into half the time what it should be, thanks to these things. Now, how do I do that on my side? Well, I do it with Final Cut. That's how I can make that time that I have the maximum that I can do in that little time, right? So talking about the movie was shot with Dragon. It was like 16 terabytes of footage. We had, I said before, it was 199 scenes. We had 106 minutes of runtime. And we had to do all these things, audio deliveries, because it was going to different places because I cannot do it all. So we had to go to different places. We have to do audio deliveries the way that they wanted, VFX deliveries, grading deliveries, and digital deliveries at the end of the movie. So the workflow that we use is actually based in the movie Focus. We took it from there, and then we changed a couple things here and there. And but it was pretty helpful to have that workflow in there and to follow it by the book, actually literally the book, and to add to things, because it's sometimes you think that you're doing something and you don't know if you're doing right or not because you just came out with it, right? But when you hear somebody else is doing the same thing that you are, then you go like, okay, so I'm going the right way, right? And then it makes you feel more secure to actually try more things versus if you're like in the void yourself and you don't know other people are doing the same thing that you are, you kind of feel like you're alone and you don't feel secure doing those steps, right? So in this case, we follow the whole workflow in that. But we had a couple of differences because we had low budget. We couldn't have an editor and assistant editor the whole time. So the way that we shot the movie is that while it was being shot, we had the assistant editor to go through all the process of like keywording, putting markers and all this stuff. And then once the shooting was done, we were able to it was handled to me and I started editing instead of like working in parallel. Like, you're doing the dailies and all this stuff and I'm getting them and I started editing. No, that thing was handled all by the assistant editor and then I jumped in after. So the thing that happened at that stage though, is that we were going so fast delivering cuts, assembly cuts, that literally we would shoot this day, the second day we would have all the elements, and then the third day the cut would be up of what they shot 2 days before, right? We're going this fast that the director asked us to take them down from Frame.io. Frame.io is a service to put clips up, you can share them with other people and all that stuff. So we were going this fast that everybody could jump on it and start look, this is what they shot 2 days ago, And then the executive producers, they started questioning things of the director, and the director would started freaking out and said take it down, please, guys. You're going really fast, take it down. I don't want them to see this thing until we're done, So that's what happened. From there we went, it was handled to me. I was, as I said, editing for an hour and 3 weeks. A month and 3 weeks. And then the movie was broken into 5 reels of 20 minutes. So it was like a week, a reel per week. That's what we did. And then we had 1 more week of going around, doing major changes, doing the screening and all this stuff, get the notes and do it again, revision of notes. Then after that, this is where we are right now. We're delivering things to graphics. We're using Automatic Ducks plugin, and then we're using the same thing going to audio using X2 Pro, and then we're doing grading that I'm doing actually myself on Resolve. After that, we're going to go back into Final Cut, put it all together, and go to Compressor to do iTunes digital delivery. There's 1 click, boom, forget about it. That's how we can speed it the whole process because we're going to do it ourselves. So now, this is what I'm going to talk about. You're open to ask me questions as I go because this is totally, I know what I'm going to say, but this is totally improvised. I'm just going to show you how I work and you can ask questions. You can say hey, why do you do that? Or why did you do that? Why did you click in there? So feel free to ask me anything, okay? So I'm going to switch this thing into Final Cut and I'm going to sit down. And so we started getting the dailies. We had a library that we call it import library, and then in there we were importing all the clips, and it was being prepped by the assistant editor, creating the events, per scene and all this stuff, synchronizing all the clips. We use Sync and Link to synchronize everything, and then we had bad fortune that the script supervisor that was hired for the movie used paper and a pencil. So we could not use Shot Notes X as we wanted. We had to do those notes manually. It was a pain. But we actually did it, and then the assistant editor was grabbing all this footage, and based on the workflow of the movie focus, we actually keyworded everything into, let's just go down here and just grab randomly any scene in here. Let's see, one that has some stuff. Yeah, right there. So in here, we're able to bring all that stuff. We rename all the clips using the internal tools of Final Cut to rename all the clips automatically based in the metadata that was coming from SyncLink. You know, usually audio guys are really good and they put all this data in there. They go like, you know, scene take and all that stuff. So all that thing when you use SyncLink to synchronize audio and video together comes into Final Cut that way. So you don't have to input it. If you want to do this thing into any other app, you have to do it manually. You have to go clip at a time and add that information and change the name manually. Once you have it in here with one-click SyncLink, then you can actually change it to whatever you want. You can actually create yours and synchronize, and rename all the clips so then they're human understandable instead of like random, you know, clip names from the camera. So after we did this, we were able to go ahead and you can see here, we were able to mark every single clip. So this is the rejected part. Why is this rejected? It's because it was everything that was before the action moment. So sometimes it would happen that in this case, for example, they do a series in one take, right? And then it's confusing because you look in here, you have one clip, and then you want to find, but the director tells you, no, we did several takes, and then I don't see that. You know, you only have, if you look only at the numbers of the clips in here, you don't find those things. And this is the cool thing of Final Cut is that with one click, I can go in here and change whatever I want to see. So I can hide rejected, or whatever it was before it was one clip with different sections in there that were valid or not. Now I can see different clips, and the director can sit next to me and look at the browser and go like, oh yeah, I see the takes now. You know, I want to see this take, and I want to see that take. So he can point, you know, he's next to me, and he can say like, I want to see that one, the third one. You know, it's more like a physical thing instead of being like a, you know, you go through the script supervisor notes, yeah, we did seven takes. You know, he's actually looking at the footage, and he can see where the camera was. And it's easy to choose which take you want to use at that point, right? In this case, we applied these markers. I'm going to change to the other view, and you're going to see that some clips, they have markers for the lines. And you would say, like, why do you do that, you know? See all these little markers up here? So if I open this thing, you're going to see the names of the markers, and it's line 1, 2, 3, 4. And all this thing is manually done in this case. But what is that useful for, right? Well, when you're editing, you're sitting down here in the timeline, and then you go, oh, well, let's say we're working in this scene, and then playing this thing here.
I can't believe you made us come back in here, man.
Come back?
Oh yeah, we were gone, out the door. But then Team Anna here had to come back just for you.
You came back for?
So in this case, let's say the director wants to change a line in here. So you can do it two ways. You can have script sync, and then you can go into the script and you can find it, and then you're working in Avid, so you wouldn't be here. Or in this case, you can use this little workflow that is really useful, that you can go here in tags, and then you can filter everything by marker, and then I know which marker I'm talking about, so I know this is line 3rd, right? It's the 3rd line of that scene. In this case, we made it different. In Focus, what they did is they went through from the beginning till the end, they number all the lines in the script. In our case, what we did is like, oh my God, you're gonna end up with like 500 or thousands of lines, right? So it was easier for us to break it into every single scene starts with line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for that scene. You know, so then it's easy for you to understand, like, this is the 3rd line of the scene or the 4th one instead of like 675, you know?
So you applied those markers on the individual clips? That you
in the browser, yeah.
Yeah, in the browser. Okay.
In the browser. The assistant editor will go through, because in this case, he doesn't have to do all the manual stuff of like, you know, going through the take, synchronizing, and all this stuff. Everything is done in one click, so he can apply that time to do this.
Okay.
you know? So then it's easier for me when I'm sitting with the director. It's like, okay, I want to replace that line in there, you know? And I can go, okay, that's line 3. So if I match frame this guy, it shows me that's the scene that we're talking about. And let's find it right here. So it has to be between the lines 1 and 3 or between 4 and 6, depending on what I want to choose. At that point, I can show to the director, these are actually those lines. And we only have these takes. So the director asks, can we get a white of that? Well, you have these 3 options, or these 3 other options. Where do you want to be? In the white, so you have the first 3. Let's go for them. And I can play them from here really easy, and he can see like, okay, I like the second one. Now go and replace it. So I can just go in here. Let's say this is what I want to do, and I can go and replace it down here. So this is pretty quick, right? Instead of like having to go and double click clips and all this stuff until you find the one that you want, or creating sub clips, or things like that, you know, living in bins that you have to remember where you put it and all this stuff. It's just a matter of like, what do I want to see at this time? And the media is always the same and lives in the same place, you know? That's the old paradigm versus the new one. Yeah, I see you.
Was all of this work done in Final Cut by the assistant?
Yes.
Okay. There was no automated program like a...
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, you can put it out there and let's see how many of us were asking for some kind of automation, and let's see who listens to us, you know? It could be, I don't know, it sounds something like intelligent assistants would do, you know, Philip Hodges and all these people, or could do, or could think about it, because these guys are really smart. I don't know, but yes, for now it was the manual process of like going take by take, pressing play, listening. Okay, this is line 1, line 2, line 3. It was not that difficult once you have, you know, the shortcuts. You start playing, and then you go like shortcut for, you know, put a marker or putting a to-do marker or something like that. You can just like do it right away. And after the third take, you already know the lines. So when the line starts, you know that that's line 3, 4, whatever. You know which line you are. And because I had to do it, there was some reshoot of the movie, and the first section was done by the assistant editor, right? Then I started editing, and 2 weeks in the editing, they did some like pickup shooting. So they shot the 4 more days, and we didn't have the money to pay him. So I had to do it myself, and I was like, oh my God, this is a pain in the butt. But I did it, and it was that thing that I said, you know, after the third take, you know the numbers of the lines, and it's easy to follow. And it's kind of tedious, but once you do it, it's the price that I mean, it's a gain for you, because when you are editing, things just flow instead of like losing time looking for something. You find things, you know. That's the main thing for me. It's like, just imagine the internet, and you are in there, you want to look for something, but you didn't have a way to search for things, right? You would have to know the name of that website, or where is that website located, or that page of that website, right? Right now, you don't think about it. You just go to the search, you know, tool, whatever it is, Google, whatever, and then you type whatever you want in there, and then it shows you, right? So that's the same concept that we can find in here versus in the other places that you can go, other NLEs. You have to find things by yourself, or go to a kind of like old school kind of like search tool that shows you things in a list instead of like showing you in context where you are, right? I don't want to find any other scene stuff. I want to find it right here. I can filter whatever I want. Actually, I can even find for rejected parts if I have them. So then I can see maybe out of the takes, I find something that I needed, a reaction, a look, or something like that, that it could be discarded, or it can be hidden if I'm only looking at subclip in a folder, right? So in this case, it's always right there for me to see it. So this workflow really worked for us. It was really quick. We're able to do all this stuff. Any questions? No?
Hey, Marc, a quick question. I like how you've broken things out according to the different dialogue lines. Right now, you've got in your library pane, I think that's what, scene 115. Can you come down one and go to scene 116?
This one?
Yeah. And then go to, I just want to see what the list view looks like there. All right, so we see all the different takes, etc. But again, I think it's really great to sort of break out the lines, because, you know, visually you get to see the close-ups, the wides. I think that's very helpful and it can speed your workflow.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it really does. It's like, I mean, I don't really, when I started with Final Cut, I can tell you that I was living here almost all the time. I was living in the least view, and I loved it. I was like, oh, this is amazing, you know, least view, I can see everything in here. It gets to a point that you actually live more in here because you can actually see it, you know? You can find things right away. And that's the thing that I realized working in the, I mean, I just jumped into Final Cut when it came out, you know? And I thought, hey, this is a good beginning, but it's just the beginning, you know? So I'm just gonna keep it in here, I keep working and making money with whatever I have, and I'm just gonna see this little kid grow up, and then when it gets to a point, I'm gonna start using it, right? And I had patience and I did it, but I always had it in there. So when it was like the time, I think it was like 10.0.4 that multicam came in and all this stuff, that's when I jump into like, I'm gonna try to use it for whatever I need to, you know? If I can like put it in there and they don't say anything, you know, people hire me, they don't ask questions what I'm using, I'm gonna put it in there. And it was growing and growing and growing, and now I'm only working in Final Cut, right? And, but at the beginning, I was like only working list view and all this stuff because I wanted to see, you know, this whole thing in here, and then especially because I wanted to see all the clips in here, but it ended up happening that I didn't know what these numbers meant, you know? It's for me easier to get in here and see right away, this is what I'm looking for, you know, I wanna be on him, I wanna be on her, you know? So, or I wanna be just looking at B-roll that happened at the same time, so I see it right away, you know? It's easier for me to see it. Yeah, there was a question in here.
Could you please turn on the used media markers?
That's another one, yeah. You can see right away what you're using or not. So the director sitting next to me can see that. Oh, I see that you're using that take. That's not what I want. So once I'm talking about the lines, you know, he can see right away that that's the one that I'm using before I even play it to him, you know. And he can see that he can only go for 2, you know, if he wanted to stay in there. All that stuff is really helpful, you know. It really speeds up the workflow. That's why we're able to go, you know, through all those 5 weeks of editing each reel in each one. We're talking about from an assembly cut till finishing the movie was like a month and 3 weeks. So it was really fast. It was, yeah.
Marc, could you talk about synchronization issues when you have double system audio? Does it help to have a weight or an audio track from a camera when matching these waveforms?
Yeah, this is another one. So in this case, we were shooting with Red cameras. Red cameras, up until now, they still don't have any microphone, right? But as a requirement, well, this is I'm gonna explain you this thing because it was actually a problem that we had. We told them, don't synchronize anything. The DIT, please don't touch anything. Don't bake, you know, video and audio because we're gonna lose all that metadata, and I want to have it. So don't do it. We're gonna synchronize ourselves. And you know what the guys thought? Oh, they're gonna use pluralize. So they didn't even put anything. They didn't slate, they slate, but they didn't jam sync the camera and the audio. So the first 2 days of shooting, we were like, what the hell are you guys doing? No, you have to, you know, jam the camera and audio. And then after that, and from the beginning, there was a requirement, I want scratch audio and cameras, always, as a safety. You know, because you have 3 things that you can use for synchronization, right? You can use timecode, you can use waveforms, audio, you know, and then the last one, it would be use the slate. So you can use the slate in the video and the slate in the audio to synchronize. So that's last resource. The first one that you want to use always is timecode because it's one-click synchronization. I repeat this, I don't get paid by Philip Hodges or anything like that, but their stuff is so awesome that every time I use it, I go like, oh my God, I just saved like 3 hours. It's one click. One click just saved me 3 hours, you know? And not just that, is that it brings all the data of what happened on the set. It's right there. I have all the names of the microphones. Look at this. I have all the names of the microphones. I didn't do this. Not even my assistant. That came with the link. So all this information you have in here to see which microphone is which one, it came. And then when you go to X2 Pro, instead of having track 1, 2, 3, and then the audio guy is like, okay, what is this? I need to figure out, and they have to listen to what it is, and they start naming things. That carries over. So when you're in Pro Tools, the audio guy knows that that is the lab of that character. So he can go and start organizing their tracks the way that they want it. Yeah.
So obviously your audio guy didn't use paper and pencil.
No.
I forget, does Sync-N-Link, when you do this, does this make synchronized clips or multicam clips in Final Cut?
It makes both. You can make so if you have only one camera and one audio, it's going to make a synchronized clip.
Okay.
If you have 2 videos and 1 audio, it's going to make multicam clips if you want to, because there's a checkbox and you can say, I want to create those multicam clips. So Sync-N-Link is smart enough to say, I have the same timecode and I have 2 video clips and I have 1 audio. That's a multicam. So it makes all those multicam.
Between, Sam, maybe, I think, wasn't there at one point an issue with synchronized clips?
Yeah.
Versus multicam, is that still the case? And what did Marc, what did you do here?
So there's a couple potential issues, but basically you should always check in terms of round tripping. There's an issue with synchronized clips coming into Resolve, which is often fixed, but not always. So basically, whatever you're trying to do, just test with your codec and just test to make sure you can get back from wherever you're going to go from the very beginning. Coming into Final Cut, you won't have any problems.
Had to keep time coding everything with the synchronized clips.
So your synchronized clips are not going to have. Your synchronized clips are not going to have time code by its very nature, because it would have to choose whether it's going to take the time code from the audio file or the video file. So it doesn't know, so it just chooses not to. Now, really, I think the question everyone needs to ask themselves is, what do they really need that time code for? And then decide how important that's going to be to the rest of the workflow, because as long as your video is going from place to place, why does it really matter what the time code is of your clip when it's not modifying the time code of the clips within your clip? So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think it poses a larger question, which is, what is really the place for time code in video for modern workflows? And I think every project needs to sort of decide what they do and don't want to do with it.
Yeah. So in this case with audio, we're able to bring all that information in just one click, and it's been pretty simple to follow, and people that inherit the next step of, like, if it's visual effects or whatever, it's pretty simple for them to get, like, on their feet and working without having to ask that many questions. Like, sometimes it happens, like, what is this thing? I have so many tracks and they sound almost the same. Here they can see, oh yeah, because if you had a boom, you had a lab, and then you had, like, sometimes they would put like a microphone in a plant, something like that, to have, more stuff. And they can see right away those names, and it makes sense for them. Then also we would use roles for everything. We use roles for everything you can imagine for music, so then we can know exactly, which music comes from which vendor, something like that, or from our own composer. He would give us like temp music to start with, and then he knows that that's his music, because when I send that thing to him, those roles, they translate into tracks, And then also because you can choose which information you want to pass on the AAF when you go to Pro Tools. You can say, hey, I only want to pass the roles that are like music, and then that's the export for music. And then I want to only do the ones that are dialogue, right? So that's for the dialogue cleaning guys. I send an AAF just with that. They don't have to have all the music. They don't have to have all that stuff just to clean the dialogue and choose which microphone sounds better, right? So yeah, in this case, all these were set up for workflow in the future. And it really helped us to make this thing really fast. So now let's go straight to the point of when you go to graphics, right? In this case, we had some visual effects things to do in this movie. There were some green screens and stuff like that. And I grabbed, it wasn't real in the first reel, but I just prepped a whole sequence of a scene that it would be just for visual effects. And it's a speech that we have at the beginning of the movie, and the guy is talking in here, like typical conference where, like this one actually, but bigger. where he's a pharmaceutical company, and he's actually about to explain these investors that they're doing a lot of things to destroy the world. But we need to prep this thing, or we need to go to graphics, right? And there's several ways of doing this thing, but I like to use Automatic DAC. Again, I don't get paid by them or anything like that, but their stuff is awesome. So I'll show you how easy it is to go from here to have the same thing in After Effects. The first thing that you have to do is group all those clips that you want to send. This is my advice. You can do it, you can send the whole sequence if you want to, but in this case, I want to group all those into a little sequence that I just have in there. In this case, I don't know if it's, I think it's like 20 clips at a time that I want to send for this scene, right? So here they are, you can see them. You know, there are multicam clips, as you can see, and there's some cuts in them. Not that much stuff in the clips or anything like that. There's just flat in there. But we're just going to go and send this to After Effects. The only thing you have to do at the beginning is go and export an XML. Out of this thing, we're going to put it right here in this folder, as is, version 1.5. And then I can hide this guy, and I can go straight to After Effects. There's no middleman in here. Okay? There's no little app that's going to convert. I just go straight into After Effects. And then in here, I can just straight, right here, Automatic DAC, X import AE. This is a trial of this guy. And that's it. Here we are. Ba-boom. Then I can start doing whatever I need to do in those shots. So there's no middleman. There's no little application that gets in the middle. There's no extra step, right? You saw it right there. Now let's go back and let's do it again. So if I come in here and I just import, I have some settings that I want to choose, just so you see. If you, people here that work with graphics and stuff like that, After Effects in general? Okay, so in this case, when you saw that timeline, the timeline was going up, right? It was like the stairway to heaven. You can choose actually if you want to go up or if you want to go down. And then if you have like stack clips, you can keep them together. If not, what it's going to do is going to first do the first layer and then do the second one up here. And if you want to have, like, for example, you have, in this case, it was a green screen, you already had like a background. So these clips, they align vertically. It's going to keep them together. And then you can say, hey, I want you to reconnect the media from this XML, but from this other hard drive, because I don't have the original send when this movie was made, right? So I can handle a little hard drive with the files, and then they can force that search to be only in that hard drive. And that would connect those files coming into here that way. So once I'm done, I do it again. You know, those are the settings up down here. And then here again, you know, I can change the settings. I can change the size of the project, you know, the composition. And I can pre-com clips in secondary storylines. So when you have secondary line with a group of clips, you can create a composition just for those. So they're grouped inside of a composition. So you can treat them that way. Now, again, this is so quick and easy. And here we go. That's the whole sequence as I had it. This is a trick that I'm going to show you. If you guys work in After Effects, you know that if you would treat this as a visual effects sequence, you would not start working each clip in here in this timeline. You would go and comb them into different clips because you would treat each clip as a separate work, you know, separate job. And sometimes you give that to different people. So you would have like 3 guys working with you. Okay, you want to work in the first one, you in the second one, and you in the third one, right? But sometimes you need to see them in sequence. So a good thing to do is, it exists this website, it's called Video Copilot, and they have this nice script in there that is called Trim Compose. So this thing, what it does is actually creates compositions of each and every clip together, so you can treat them as a separate composition and work them separately in a nice way, as you're going to see right now. So, well, first what I need to do is cancel. I will select the clips that I want to do the trim compose. I can just grab a few of them. I don't need to select all of them, but in this case, I want to select all of them. I would go into, scripts, and trim compose. It's going to put all these new compositions to a folder. It's going to name trim comps. And I want to add handles because I want to do these shots with like 3, 4, 5 handles. So then if they go back to editing and they want to change that, they want to trim that edit, they're going to have those extra frames in there just to tweak it. So in this case, I want to add 5 frames. And I'm going to hit OK. And I already have that clip with the handles, as you can see in here. And then I can jump on it and start working on it as a separate clip. All this thing is super easy, super quick, right? I don't have to do it manually one at a time. I had to, it was just one click and it was done. So, any questions about this? No?
So for the handles, it's able to add that because it's pointing back to the direct media. It's not like a clip exporter where you're just taking the
exactly
range from your timeline in Final Cut.
Exactly. That's the freedom you have in here, is that with Clip Exporter, you determine those handles ahead of what you're going to be in, you know? So let's say if you're doing that, you need to ask the, graphics people or visual effects people how many handles they want and all this stuff. With this, in this case, they're going to have all the clip, and I'm giving them the freedom to choose how many, or we can change that in the future, or for a specific shot, hey, can you give me 10 of that one specifically, because it's an action shot and we don't know still, we're like tweaking the edit or whatever. So we can actually change that, at any given time, because they're gonna have, if I go inside of the clip, you see that it put every single clip in a composition, and that's the whole clip. That is the whole, you can see here it says like 30 seconds, 1 minute. So this is the whole clip, the whole take. It's not just that portion. So that gives us the opportunity to go always back and retrim. Okay?
Have you ever had any issues if the clip was retimed in Final Cut?
Okay. That's, I have it in here, I think. Yeah. This is the thing that I want to show you guys. So this is another good thing of working with Automatic Duck, is that supported features. These are all the features that you can apply to a clip, and they're going to translate into After Effects. But not just that, also third-party plugins. So let's say you have Colorista, and you apply Colorista to a clip in Final Cut. When you bring that into After Effects, it's going to still have that Colorista with those settings applied to them. So you don't need to redo that thing or tell the graphics person you're going to have to do this thing, or this is what I had applied, and give them the parameters and they have to type it. It's going to translate all these effects, and it brings everything. It brings, I think it was, you can see here, video, audio fades and video fades, transitions and stuff like that, scale, and retiming, freeze frame, variable retiming, constant retiming. So all that thing comes, The variable retiming is when you do like different, sections of the same clip with different times. All that thing carries over. It's really good. The translation is really good.
Crop. Yeah.
Crop. Trim. And the Ken Burns effect. So if you do regular crop, it does work. Right. What it doesn't do is the animation of the picture. Yeah. Okay? So that thing translates perfectly. So you can go to the website, you can check this stuff, you can go through the settings that are being translated. I suggest you, if you want to use it, there's actually a trial. You can download a free trial, as you can see in there. And then you can try it. You can see the settings that you want to translate or not, if they work or not. But majorly, I can tell you, like 90% of what you want to do in the timeline, it gets into After Effects. No questions. Now, in general, any questions?
Okay, if you guys do have any questions, just raise your hand and I'll come over with the mic.
In general, it can be about the workflow, it can be about After Effects, it can be about,
Sir, hold on 1 second. Wait. Basically, we're recording this. So
Oh, okay,
this is going to live elsewhere. If you don't talk into the mic, no one's going to hear what you're saying.
When you exported your media for like visual effects,
Yeah.
did you just send them all your media that needed to be visual effects, or did you consolidate that somehow?
Okay, that's another thing. Also from Automatic Duck, it's not in the computer right now, but it's media copy. Media copy allows you to consolidate the footage. But you can say, hey, I can do that with Final Cut. I can create a new library. I can just drag and drop that project into that new library, and I use the consolidation, right, inside of consolidate command inside of Final Cut. And you can do that easy. You select the library. You can go in here, and you can just press this thing after setting where you want to put that media, right? And if you just create a new library, it's going to copy all that stuff. And you would say, like, yeah, that's amazing, cool, yeah. But Apple guys, please, what happens when I'm a freak of organization, yeah? I like to keep my folders in my way, so I have everything that way. I can find them. I use post haste to create this folder structure, so I always use the same one. And people working with me, they get used to it and they start using it, and we don't need to ask, where did you put that graphic? We know where the graphic is because it should be in the folder graphics, And so what happens with the video and the audio is that I create these folders and everything is super organized, but then when I use the consolidate command, I lose all that stuff. Everything is date-based. I don't know when I created that file or when that file was shot or anything. I just know it was a graphic. So if you use this little application, it actually keeps that folder structure when you do the consolidate command. So it would create the folder graphics, and it would put those two files that you're using in that project in that folder, and then it would put another one that would be like lower thirds, and it would put them in there, and then audio, and it would put those files in there instead of creating this thing that is really useful, but sorry to say, it's a little of a mess because I had everything super organized before and I lost that organization. So when I pass this to another person, they don't know what they're talking about, So yeah, more questions?
Hi, can you speak a little bit about your Red workflow? How you did you work natively in Red and then proxy, and then how you went from DaVinci and back?
Yeah, in this case, the dailies were being done anyway, so we started editing using the ProRes LTE files because they were 16 terabytes, and in my case, I was editing from home. I have a 10 terabyte Pegasus, and I was not able to have them all online, so we started using that workflow of working offline. For the next movie, yes, I'm going to work natively. I'm going to import all the Red files in Final Cut, and I'm going to create the proxy workflow in the app, because then every single export I have to do for visual effects or anything like that is linking straight to those files, and I want to save steps in there. So my next iteration of my workflow is going to even be faster because of that. So that's what we did. Go into Resolve. I mean, there's no problem when you send something in there, because you can actually forget about the extension of the file, just look for the same name and look in this folder, and it reconnects. The only problem that you're going to have is that if you don't have the proper time code, you can have problems linking to the original of the camera.
Just had a question about pre-production workflow tests. Do you recommend people try to coordinate with the camera department or in some way do a workflow test through to your end if you can arrange that?
Totally.
And what would you prioritize in that kind of a workflow?
Well, in this case, you need to have a meeting with production, and then explaining what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and what you're going to need from them. And then telling them, in this case, we had a problem with the script supervisor, and we couldn't get her to use a computer, actually. It was impossible. But camera people actually were really helpful, doing everything that we asked for. In this case, for our case, we wanted to prioritize time code, over anything. I want to have time code, time code sync. And then the second one was the scratch microphone, just in case anything, sometimes it falls out of sync. You turn off the camera, boom, it's out of sync, and things like that. And then everything was going through a DIT, but the DIT didn't do that many things for us because we synchronized everything ourselves, audio and video. So It was just that.
And this is a really, really important concept for you guys at home is like, you guys all know how a lot of this stuff actually works, but keep in mind people in production have no clue why you want the things that you want.
True.
So unless you can explain to them why something needs to be done, why your script supervisor might need to know how to use a computer, why they might need to know how a spreadsheet works, they're not going to think, they're going to think the binder is just okay to just hand to you because they don't actually know what post-production does with anything. It lives separately from the edit. And the biggest thing, for instance, that I found just doing the pilot where I actually got to do that was that no one really has a problem with doing anything if they understand why you're doing it. So like the key is the more you talk to the people and have an integrated beginning to end where everyone has sort of a common goal and vision, the smoother everything is going to go because people are going to try to put the next department in a position to succeed. So the more that you try and put each other in a position to succeed, and it's not about my department versus this department and all this other stuff, it's we need to do this as part of the process, the more integrated this approach is going to be and the fewer problems you're going to have. And the more that you can test and demonstrate, which is why you should do a workflow test ahead of time, the easier this is all going to go, because then you can show people why something worked and didn't work. For instance, we had, instead of a DIT, you just mentioned the DIT didn't do much. Well, on our pilot, we had an assistant editor, so we were ready when it came in. So like, why have a DIT if you don't need dailies, you know? There's a lot of things, it's like, think about why you're doing things as opposed to what you're supposed to do and what position you're supposed to have on set. And we'll take 2 more questions, and then we're going to go ahead and get Luke up.
Thanks. Can you talk a little more about your audio post workflow? For example, when you, using X2Pro that you sent there, did you create, for instance, any kind of a spotting list for ADR, for instance, or was it through Final Cut? Was there a means to do that, or was that just done by the audio people, by your audio post people afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, first what I would do every time that I would spot something that I need to do, of course I would use markers, and I would just in the the markers in here, in the tags, you can actually find whatever you need to do. You know, like for example, visual effects and name them and all this stuff. So then you can start tracking them. I would always apply also roles to things that I need to track, like visual effects. All these shots need to have visual effects done on them, any kind, you know, and I can see them right away. The markers actually translate. When you go to Pro Tools, those markers show up in Pro Tools and with the name of what you put in there. Like for example, for BKB, the boxing show that I did the demo at NAB, we had a lot of like swear words we had to mute, you know? So in this case, every time we would find one, we would write it. And then the guy was actually not an English-speaking person. He was mixed in Spain, right? But he was able to like, we would type the word in the marker and he would see it right away. You know, and actually it was super accurate because that would be the beginning of the word and he was able to mute it. So yeah, we would use markers for this workflow.
We'll take one more question from Marc, and then we'll go take a break.
Marc, hi. Why did you choose to go with ProRes LT instead of the built-in proxies? It was about the quality or something with their relinking or?
Yes, here that's a question, right? And I'm talking about my past experience with proxy files, and this is the main thing. There's no way to relink proxy files. If you lose that link, there's no way for you to go, hey, all these files that I don't have proxies, they are in this folder.
You actually can, there's a hack.
Okay. But there's no legal way of doing that. Say like, hey, you know, relink proxy files, they're in this folder. Or I don't want to do them with Final Cut because I'm going to use this computer. I have a network at work, right? I have 20 computers. You know, when I work at DirecTV, we have like 20 computers. What if I use 20 computers to actually do the dailies, and I can have them in 1 hour instead of like having to wait with one computer doing all the proxies? So I want to use all these computers to create proxies for me, the same way that Final Cut would use them. And then I want to tell Final Cut, hey, these are the proxies, find them. Oh yeah, they're here, you know? and I can use them. That's why. Because in the past, we lost that link and we had to make them again. Because I couldn't find, at that time, I didn't know about any hacks, so that's why I wanted to save my butt in this case, because we were going back and forth just with a hard drive and doing things like that and then copying it and sending it to other people.
Everybody give a brief round of applause for Marc.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.